Are you tired of your Magento admin panel being as slow as a snail? Perhaps, maybe, if you're one of the few that likes to watch paint dry. But I've never met somebody who actually likes slow websites. I don't think it's almost existent. I have identified 5 common areas where you might experience a slowness, and yes, I had to put in there one of them, it's all slow. But we really need to get more specific than this, for good reason. This specificity tells us what needs to be fixed. You're going to see SwiftOtter's methodical process for understanding and then resolving these particular problems. So if you are ready to inject some caffeine into this slow admin of yours, let's get down to the brass tacks. We're going to look at these 5 different areas and then hopefully some resolutions for each one of them. Don't forget to share your best performance enhancing trick in the comments right here below. I'd love to see it. Number 1, grids taking too long to load, or maybe seeming to take forever. In fact, we might have some sympathy with Peter as, he would rather watch paint dry. I know I would. You might want to check on that product or that order. You click into there and that grid literally takes 2 minutes to load, or at least it feels like it. Honestly, for all that we care about, it could be 10 minutes to load. Now, in some cases, this is due to making modifications to these grids. For example, if you select 200 products, or maybe you filter by the general search box. I want to be clear because your first thought is, well, I should be able to do that. And I agree with you. You should be able to do that. And this is indicative of backend problems. But for the time being, limiting your capability to limit these grids or filter these grids might be a helpful thing. A couple of potential causes that we regularly see causing this type of a problem would be these. Poorly implemented customizations where it's hitting the database too often. Ultimately, yes, there could be too many products in the database, but I would say that's, again, a symptom of poor implementation, poor customizations. And ultimately, as a result, we might then not be able to support so many products at one time. So when we at SwiftOtter are approached with a problem like this, our first response is we're going to jump into New Relic and we're going to identify the slow queries or poorly optimized code that is causing this problem. This is going to allow us to find where this problem is located, and we're going to be able to get in and honestly fix it pretty quickly. Is usually using the right tools allows for a pretty successful quick fix. Number 2, though, every page loads slowly. This is that general bucket that I was telling you about. And in my experience, this is not as regular. There's usually going to be some pages that are slow, but not everything. In the cases where everything seems slow, I agree. This is really frustrating. The good news in my experience is this is generally systemic and can often be fairly easily fixable. It comes down to a number of potential causes in this type of a situation. First, we might have too many admin users, which is pretty much always due to an undersized hosting environment, which could also be exacerbated by poorly built modules built on every page. But another aspect of this could be that we don't have caches enabled. This is something easily you can check. You can go into System, Cache Management, check and see which ones are enabled. Now, just because one is disabled doesn't mean that you go and just enable it. Make sure when you do enable it that you carefully review the front end, and make sure that the basic business functions don't stop. I'm consistently surprised with superfluous features that developers built out that are attached to a cache, for example, the config cache, and then that just kind of break the front end at that point. Like customers are seeing information from other customers, or products not updating properly. Again, a lot of this comes back to poor implementations, but there are a couple of solutions that you can take in a case like this. Now, what if, another frustrating one, is any of these not frustrating? What if you are working on a big update on a page and this page just locks up? You're working at adding some new options to a product and you're clicking to add a new row or just even expanding a list and it locks up. It's no fun at all. You can't scroll up and down. Perhaps even your computer might slow down. Unfortunately, this is something that pretty much only a developer can fix. I'm not aware of a way, something that you can do to make your life easier. They're going to have to get into the code, use the profiler, identify what's going on. And this is more of a tricky issue. It's going to take a really senior level front-end developer to figure out those type of issues. We figured these out ourselves, and it's highly rewarding to get that done, I will say. But at the end of the day, and unfortunately, there really is not much that you can do yourself on this. Now, what about if saving operations take forever? This number 4 point is difficult, right? Because it's a little scary. Ultimately, we just spent half an hour building out a product and it's now sits as saving forever. Even worse if we get a Cloudflare timeout page. The good news is with a Cloudflare timeout page, it's actually, those backend processes are still probably running. So you just have to be patient, refresh the page, and it's probably going to pull up with the saved information. Saving operations taking forever can be indicative as well of backend processes that have not been properly configured. Again, you're kind of noticing a trend here. A couple of potential options here that will cause this type of a situation. Too many modules trying to do too many things at once. When you're saving a product, for example, Adobe Commerce has the capability to push these type of processes into the background. We want to be leveraging that to enhance the admin user experience. Again, poorly optimized code when it comes to these saving processes. There also is some scenarios that we have seen where there is too many long running processes. For example, like creating or sending emails. Depending on how all of that's configured, that can be a problem. And maybe this information is being pushed out to a third-party web service, which that loads slowly, and that can also create a problem. Unfortunately, there's really not much that we can do here. We at SwiftOtter have lots of experience with this type of optimization. In fact, one of our developers just literally spent a week training with one of the best performance experts in the industry. Super impressive what they're capable of doing. But unfortunately, it still comes down to, in this case, it's going to be a developer, a really knowledgeable developer, in order to solve this type of a problem. Finally, bulk operations taking a long time to load. Number 5 here. This one is a little less knowable because, well, it's knowable and when you don't get your product export done. You do a save your product mass actions, which is powered by the bulk engine, and it doesn't complete. You don't see your attributes ever come through. And unfortunately, there's very little insight as far as job status. The usual back-end problem for this is that these scheduled tasks are not being properly configured. We work to have this enabled on every project, but we have still run into some issues where these back-end processes actually take up too much resources and then start crashing the machine in different ways. That also is a problem, and there are some solutions to doing this. In fact, it's pretty much limited to one type of hosting environment where we have had the worst type of these problems. Either way, this is definitely something that is highly obnoxious and can be difficult to troubleshoot. I hope you found these 5 sources of information useful. I have an article that I wrote, linked to in the description below, which has a lot more depth. We go into more examples and more depth as far as how to resolve these problems. One thing that I need to add is if this slow admin stuff is just too much, you have options. BigCommerce is a platform that we have really loved investing into. We found that merchants are incredibly happy on it. And to be honest, most merchants, I think it's fair to say, most merchants don't actually need this level of customization. They just need the ability to transact with some customization. Now, if you're needing to have a completely custom business process, well then yes, Adobe Commerce might make more sense. But there is a lot of cases where BigCommerce really fits the need quite nicely. Ultimately, this maintenance, this ongoing money that is spent, can often be put into BigCommerce as an optimization budget, again, putting it far above the capabilities of Adobe Commerce at that point. Again, Adobe Commerce is a great platform. It's fantastic. It's very powerful, very customizable, but if you don't need that level of customization, you're tired of dealing with issues like a slow admin all the time, BigCommerce might be a really good fit for you. So if that's the case, let us know. Happy to chat about this, but I hope you found this information about working through this slow admin. I hope you found this quite helpful.